Quickly, Dan, I just want to point out to our viewers the suspect now in custody is this individual named Larry Russell Dawson, 66 years old, from Tennessee. Court documents say he was involved in an incident, as you point out, back in October 2005. He disrupted the House of Representatives chamber in that incident, according to documents. He loudly stated to Congress he was, quote, a prophet of God. So clearly there's an issue there with this individual's mental status, if you will.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Let's get to the breaking news. We're now learning new information from the police about this afternoon's shooting inside the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center. The suspect, a man, he's now in the hospital. Police shot him. A woman, described as a bystander, has been injured by shrapnel. The gigantic U.S. Capitol complex went into lockdown. Police cars and ambulances rushed to the scene. Visitors and staff were told to shelter in place. That lockdown ended about an hour ago, but plenty of questions remain. Our correspondents, analysts, and guests, they have full coverage of the day's top stories. Let's go right to Capitol Hill right now. Brian Todd is on the scene for us. First of all, Brian, tell us what the police are now saying.
Wolf, police are now saying this suspect is known to police from previous incidents here on Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill Police Chief Matthew Verderosa just briefed reporters a moment ago, saying, just giving details about the incident, saying this is an act, we believe, of a single person who has frequented the Capitol grounds before. There is no reason to believe this is anything more than a criminal act. The police chief did not give the suspect's name, but did indicate that the suspect is known to police because he has frequented the Capitol grounds before. Other information that we just heard from the police chief, the suspect entered the Capitol Hill Visitor Center area, passed through a checkpoint, an alarm was set off. He drew a weapon. A Capitol Hill police officer then shot him. He is injured. He has been transported to the hospital. His condition is not known at this time. Also, Wolf, a female bystander was wounded in this incident, but no law enforcement personnel were wounded. But again, this just in from the Capitol Hill Police Chief Matthew Verderosa. This was a single act, he said, a criminal act, no reason to believe it was terrorism, he said, or anything more than a criminal act. The suspect is known to police. We also, one of our local affiliates caught up to a witness a short time ago who described the scene when the Capitol was locked down. Take a listen.
There was a bunch of military police coming up with guns. They were shoving us over to one side so they could run up. And then they took us, seemed like a very long hall that they said was 3 levels below in the basement, 3 sub-levels in the basement, and they just basically had us stand there for, I don't know, 45 minutes.
And again, new information tonight, the breaking news, the Capitol Hill Police Chief Matthew Verderosa telling reporters that the suspect in this shooting was known to police. The police chief saying that he attempted to go through the metal detectors near the Capitol Visitors Complex. When that happened, he pulled out a weapon. And at that moment, Capitol Hill police officers fired on him and shot him. He was transported to the hospital, Wolf. His condition is not known at this time. A female bystander, the Capitol Hill police chief said she was about 35 to 45 years old. She was wounded by shrapnel in the incident, and her condition is also not known at this time, Wolf.
Quickly, Brian, did the Capitol Hill police chief say what kind of weapon it was and whether it was loaded?
We pressed him on that, Wolf. He walked away very hurriedly. We were all asking him that question, what kind of weapon it was and whether it was loaded. He was not ready to answer that at this time. He may not have that information at this time. His information just a moment ago at this news conference was very preliminary. We also pressed him about a name of the suspect, and he could not answer that or did not want to answer that. What he did say was that the suspect was known to them.
So the only shots that were fired were by police officers on the scene to stop this guy from continuing, right? He actually never managed to fire a shot, is that right?
From everything we know now, Wolf, he did not manage to fire a shot. He went through the metal detectors. He set off an alarm. He drew a weapon, and at that point, at least one police officer shot at him and wounded him. There is no information now that he discharged his weapon at all. Now, again, that could change because this is all very fluid. We don't have a name of the suspect yet, but as of now, no information that he actually discharged that weapon, Wolf.
All right, Brian, stand by. Clearly, security extremely tight up on Capitol Hill right now because of the already serious threat of terrorism. Heavily armed guards, they are everywhere here in Washington right now. Our senior political reporter, Manu Raju, covers Congress for us. He's joining us live. Manu, you're up on the Hill all the time. This is something that they clearly worry about, someone coming with a weapon trying to go through the magnetometers to enter the Capitol Hill Visitor Center.
That's absolutely right, Wolf. Really, the Capitol Police have been increasingly preparing for things like this since 1998. That was the time when 2 police officers actually shot in the Capitol complex. And since that time, you've seen a really significant increase in police response to prevent these incidents from happening again. And of course, post 9/11, that security was ratcheted up even further. And the Capitol Visitor Center, as we should say, is where hundreds, if not thousands, of tourists enter every single day and week to come and see the majestic building that is the United States Capitol. And that entrance is right outside the Capitol building and actually across the street from the United States Supreme Court. But throughout the Capitol, the law enforcement prepares for contingencies like this. There actually are drills that happen on a weekly basis. In fact, today, when Senator Joe Donnelly of Indiana was meeting with Merrick Garland, the Supreme Court nominee, President Obama's Supreme Court nominee, and actually the drill, a shelter-in-place drill, went off earlier today as that was happening, almost a few hours before they were actually shelter-in-place actually took place in the House and the Senate. Just shows how proactive law enforcement has been to protect against this type of incident. So clearly, the law enforcement is preparing for this type of thing. And as we saw here, they reacted rather swiftly as soon as the suspect's gun went off in that magnetometer. The police appeared to fire away, and that's where the suspect is right now, in hospital under surgery, according to the police chief, Wolf.
And it was pretty frightening for everyone in Washington when we heard almost exactly at the time of this lockdown up on Capitol Hill, and shots were fired on Capitol Hill. Manu, almost exactly at the same time, we got word of a lockdown at the White House, and reporters, everyone else in the White House was told to stay in place, don't leave the West Wing of the White House, because apparently someone tried to jump over the fence, but we had no idea if this was coordinated. But walk us through the sensitivity of what's going on here in Washington right now.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, what we're hearing from Secret Service is that actually that it was not a fence jumper, someone who's actually trying to enter the White House separately, and that's what prompted that lockdown at the White House. But it was not related at all to what happened in the Capitol. But as you said, that happened at the exact same time. So it seemed that there was something that was related here. But it really just shows how on edge and how much precaution is taken by law enforcement given the age that we're living in. And also, I should note, these precautions are taken even though members of Congress are actually on recess right now. Hardly anybody is in town on Capitol Hill other than staff members, but there are lots and lots of tourists traveling through the Capitol Visitor Center as we're in cherry blossom season. And at the White House, and the Easter egg roll hunt was taking place today. A big day for tourists, which is one reason why you're seeing such an aggressive police presence as soon as any concern, including of course, the suspect, the shooting that happened in the Capitol, but also this person who tried to enter the White House.
Yeah, it's frightening, especially, I'm sure, for all those thousands, tens of thousands of tourists who are here in the nation's capital right now. Manu, stand by. Joining us now in the Situation Room, our senior law enforcement analyst, the former FBI Assistant Director Tom Fuentes, CNN law enforcement analyst Art Roderick. He's a former Assistant Director of the U.S. Marshal's Office, and our chief political correspondent, Dana Bash, who's covered Capitol Hill for many years. Art, what's your take? Let me go to Tom first. Your take on what happened today, because it looked like the system worked as it was supposed to work.
Right, I think so. You know, someone tries to go through the magnetometers with a gun, sets the alarm, the police react as he draws the gun, and pretty much the incident was over after they shot him. So we don't know what his condition is or who the person is or whether this is a lone nut that frequently comes to the Capitol and causes problems. We'll learn that in the hours and possibly day ahead. But I think so far it's a pretty, almost a routine situation that somebody comes through there and all the mechanisms that are designed to stop someone with a gun from getting in the Capitol worked.
But they still have to go through all the motions. That's why there's this massive lockdown. The lockdown didn't just take place in the main Capitol Hill building, but it took place in all the office buildings on the House side and the Senate side. They want to make sure that this particular incident isn't a cover for something that potentially could be worse.
Yeah, exactly, Wolf. And I actually got a couple of texts from some friends of mine that were in lockdown on the Hill. And the Capitol Police had come by and let them know the situation was stabilized, but to remain locked down until they give the all clear. I think the key part here is, and the chief had mentioned it, that this individual is known to them. And anybody that's done law enforcement security, work personal protection details, unfortunately you have individuals out there that are known to create disturbances or create these types of incidences, so they are known. And that leads me to believe that probably what we have here is just a criminal act done by a psychologically unstable individual.
But you don't know that until you obviously
don't know that yet,
investigate that. Dana, what are you hearing from your sources, because you're well plugged in up there, about this individual who is obviously in the hospital right now?
Well, as you heard, the police chief didn't want to say much about this suspect, but apparently the reason why the suspect is known to the police is because he was involved in an incident back in October of last year, so October of 2015, where he was involved in a disruption really in the House chamber, and during that he assaulted a police officer. So that'll certainly get you noticed by the Capitol Police and get you on a list of somebody to look out for. So that is likely why they knew who this individual was so quickly. I should say that is reporting that comes to us by way of our colleague Peter Morris. The other thing that I just want to add to what we heard at the top of the show about that you asked the question, Wolf, about what kind of gun was it and was it loaded? The one thing that the police chief did say is that they have the gun, which probably shouldn't be surprising, but you never know in these incidents, but they do have it. So we might not know the answers to those questions, but they certainly do.
Dana, we're just getting word, according to 2 law enforcement officials, the suspect in custody now is an individual named Larry Russell Dawson. And as you point out, he was pretty well known to Capitol Hill Police because of other incidents in the past. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Now, I guess, as you're saying, we probably got that information as I was speaking. We can use the man's name, but that's exactly right. He was known to the Capitol Police. But, I just want to underscore, especially as somebody who, as you mentioned, for years, I would walk and have walked through the doors of the Capitol. Not through the visitor center because I have a press pass, but I've watched the whole security operation change so much, not just since 1998 when 2 police officers were shot and killed at the Capitol door, but more importantly since 2001. The panel was talking about the shelter-in-place concept. Obviously it was a quite different situation, but I was at the Capitol on 9/11 and the reaction was everybody evacuate, everybody get out. So you had this mass exodus of people running out of the Capitol down onto the lawn, nobody knowing what was happening, and everybody potentially being in even more danger being outside. So that the shelter-in-place idea to protect the people in the Capitol and the people outside the Capitol, that is one of the many things learned from such horrific incidents like 9/11, and their security measures in place that didn't even come close to existing back then when that happened.
Quickly, Dan, I just want to point out to our viewers the suspect now in custody is an individual named Larry Russell Dawson, 66 years old, from Tennessee. Court documents say he was involved in an incident, as you point out, back in October 2005. He disrupted the House of Representatives chamber in that incident, according to documents. He loudly stated to Congress he was, quote, a prophet of God. So clearly there's an issue there with this individual's mental status, if you will.
That's right, and I seem to remember that incident because it was one of many times being in the Capitol there was a lockdown because of that happening, and because when there's a disruption of that magnitude while the House is in session, and my memory is that the House was in session at the time, everybody stops and the security measures go into place. So that is why he was known to law enforcement. But I also just want to underscore the idea that everything did work. It is obviously unfortunate that a woman had to go to the hospital because of shrapnel, but the fact that the mag worked, set off by the gun, and even though this individual was clearly determined to use the gun or at least draw the gun, The police officers were so well trained, they were ready to react in a split second. And that is something that we should not forget. It is so important and should be commended over and over again in a situation like this, where everybody wants and relies on buildings like the U.S. Capitol that really represent, not to get too corny, but represent freedom to continue to be so and to feel like they could be protected when they go into them.
All right, Dana, stand by. Everyone stand by.